By a show of hands, who believes the story that Donald Trump is a changed man? This breaking story unpacks his first interview after the failed assassination, and it also shares his bold claim to be a changed man, what some are calling divine providence, and the opportunity it is for his brand.
Right now, Trump has the potential to become a much more sympathetic figure in the eyes of undecided voters.
And it will be served with a big dose of cynicism.
How do you avoid being cynical that this is 24 hours and not more of uniting of a message of unity from the podium, from the stage, and from people gathering?
I am 100% convinced that Trump will ride the wave of being a sympathetic character at this moment in time, and will ride the unity message through the convention because it's a great pivot opportunity. And although he may appear dumb at times, he is not. And in just a minute, I will share the most salient point that came from the CNN interviews that defines how Donald Trump, the most divisive politician since the Civil War era, can and will use this moment in time to pull a switcheroo. Let's begin with the CNN interview with Selena Zito, the Washington Examiner reporter who scored the first interview with Trump after the shooting, and then was the first to capture the new narrative that will surely follow him through the Republican National Convention.
Well, it's really interesting. I was just a few feet away from him, along with my daughter, who is a photojournalist. And so he called me this morning or this afternoon, and he said in that moment, he understood that everything had changed. He said he was going to focus on bringing the country back together.
And that sounded good, but here's where the interview gets a little sideways. See if you can catch the two cringe moments I heard, and I'll be back to point them out. And in a moment, I'll share the instincts by a political expert that blows Trump's facade out of the water and reveals his true nature that we're sure to see again.
He wanted to project it as people, and he says he loves these people, and they are the backbone. This is a Rust Belt area. This is a blue-collar, white, working-class, mostly crowd. And he wanted to project he thought it was important to project to the country in that moment that everything was okay.
Did you catch the cringe that I heard? The first one was a Freudian slip. The reporter from the conservative Washington Examiner got tongue-tied and uttered white in describing who Trump is appealing to.
This is a blue-collar, white, working-class, mostly crowd.
And the other one was the use of the word project twice. And that word project perfectly describes the Donald Trump blueprint. A performance done to get an emotional reaction. And after the interview, CNN teed up right and left experts to comment on Trump's claim that he now understands his purpose is to unify America, and he wants to project strength to show the country everything will be okay. First, the right, represented by David Urban.
I think in that moment you recognize that there's some divine providence involved here, and that maybe you get another opportunity to kind of think about what you should be doing, what you should be talking about on the stage in this arena moving forward, and the message of uniting the country. And it's a moment now to say, look, maybe we should kind of dial it back.
Divine providence. That was a nice touch, David, and I'm sure the evangelicals of MAGA will lean into a miracle of God narrative early and often. Meanwhile, here's the response from the left by Paul Begala, who pours some cold water over this moment of opportunism for Trump and reminds us of his true nature.
It's almost impossible to answer your question, Kate, that someone this well-defined can be redefined. But this country is always open to it. You know, we are a really big-minded country. Mr. Trump has the opportunity now to be both strong and sympathetic. That's kind of not, the latter half of that is not Trump's brand. Okay, he's never been brand unity. Okay, Joe Biden is, but he is brand strength. So if he can combine those, that would be really formidable. And I do think, even I as a Democrat, I can't stand him. Okay, but I wish him well, and I would love to see him try to redefine himself, because there's so much division in this country, and a whole lot of it is fostered by Donald Trump. So if he can change that, that would be a wonderful thing for our country, and frankly, for Mr. Trump politically.
That word brand, it was used so many times in the reports that I reviewed today, and brand is part of marketing, and marketing just happens to be the power of persuasion and I know a man who wrote a book on it. And here's another commentator who voices some skepticism over Trump's new turned leaf. It's former CNN anchor Brian Stelter.
When I hear Donald Trump talk about unity, what I think he's saying is reject politics. You don't have to worry about politics anymore if I'm back in office. We will all just get along again. That is, of course, highly unlikely because that's the promise that Biden made nearly 4 years ago. And of course, that did not come to pass. But rather than fantasize about unity, we should talk about a desire for nonviolence, for civil conversation instead of civil unrest. And that is where the vast majority of Americans agree. The average American is not, battling thy neighbor, right? We're not at each other's throats. We are not actually in a state of civil war. We are far from it. Most Americans have a lot more in common than they realize. It's just that our political debate is so polarized, so aggrieved, and sometimes, it ends up in this very dark place.
So what do you think? Do you agree with me that this unity talk is nonsense? His entire political brand is built on stoking fear, resentment, and an us versus them mentality, and reports suggest the shooter was a conservative gun enthusiast, the very type of person Trump has been courting and inflaming for years with his rhetoric. The truth is, Trump thrives on conflict and division, and any talk of unity from him should be met with extreme skepticism. And in the interest of fair and balanced reporting, I'll give Donald Trump the final word as he answers the question. Donald, is this truly sincere?
Ridiculous bullshit.